Thank you for listening in on this interview today. We will be introducing you to Bill Hayton, one of the trustees of the Citizens Advice of Colchester, to share his fascinating experience and insights on Asia from an economic and investment perspective. Firstly, we are proud to announce Citizens Advice Colchester as our Charity of the Year. The charity was founded in 1939 to help the people of Colchester and its surrounding area cope with the challenges of war, and is still helping local people today. During the pandemic, many more people than usual have turned to Citizens Advice for assistance. So this free and confidential service really captures our values here at Fiducia. Bill Hayton is the author of 3 books on Asia, one of which is The South China Sea, The Struggle for Power in Asia, a book which raises some interesting themes and questions regarding investing today. I will now hand over to Gordon Kearney, Managing Director of Fiducia Wealth Management, who will be speaking to Bill about all things Asia and investing. Thank you.
Hi, Bill. Good to talk to you today, and thank you for taking the time to discuss Southeast Asia. Here at Fiducia, we identified the shift from west to east over a decade ago, and this, coupled with the demographic changes, urbanisation and its impact on commodity prices and infrastructure spend, really helped shape how we constructed our portfolio. So it was a great opportunity to hear from an expert on the subject.
I'm very happy to join you.
As I'm sure you know, Napoleon once said that once China wakes, he will shake the world. Do you think it was inevitable that China would awaken? And if so, what do you believe to be the important impact and causes of this?
Well, I think yes. I think China was, had a huge potential, but it was constrained, and constrained at 2 moments in its history. In the run-up to the end of the 19th century, you had a very old-fashioned empire and all these pressures building up within it, and they were held back. And then they had the revolution in 1911-12, and that suddenly had the first sort of burst. And then after the communists took over in 1949, again, you had the sort of country being suppressed economically, and that changed after 1979, and suddenly all these forces were unleashed in the society. So China, ever since 1979, has just been on this huge growth curve, lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty in itself, and also had major knock-on implications for its region and for the whole world.
Thanks for that. Your book discusses the tensions and disputes in the mineral and fish-rich South China Sea. Do you think it's inevitable that there will be conflict, if not regionally, globally, as a result?
I hope not. I think everybody involved knows what's at stake, that it would be so damaging for the region and for world trade. I mean, around a third of all world trade goes through the South China Sea. If you think about all the places, Korea, China, Japan, that are out there making and buying things, it's critically important. The problem is we're getting to a point in history where the stakes are rising, but more worryingly, I think all the players kind of think that they, could possibly come out tops in some kind of conflict, and that makes it more likely that it might happen. But having said that, I believe that everybody kind of recognizes the harm that it would cause, and that people will try and avoid it as far as possible. The big question really is China's relations with Taiwan. I mean, that seems to me to be the more important, the more likely scenario for a conflict, which would be very damaging. And I think we're going to see a lot of brinkmanship in the next few years. The two sides jostle with one another, with the people on Taiwan becoming more independence-minded, people in China being more nationalistic and wanting to reclaim Taiwan. So that is a worry, I think, going ahead.
Okay. So, other than war, can you foresee anything that may derail the economic and political ascent of China in the 21st century?
Well, I think China has an interesting demographic issue coming up. I mean, it's one of the 2 biggest countries in the world, population-wise, with India. But its population is starting to fall. And so you have this question whether China is going to become rich before it gets old. Is it going to be able to continue to sustain its growth? I mean, for a long time now, its growth has been sustained by the number of people migrating to the cities, along, from the interior to the coast mainly, and working in factories and becoming more aspirational, buying more stuff. And that clearly is the way that the Chinese government wants to go. It wants to kind of rely less on markets overseas and more on its own internal consumption. So that will have big impacts in terms of what China buys from abroad and what it makes at home, which will be both an opportunity, but also potentially a risk in terms of if the society has to spend more on looking after its older people, it'll be spending less on other forms of consumption.
Fascinating. I mean, a lot of focus in this area is on China, but do you think there are any of nations in the region that are notable of mention in terms of how they may sort of emerge in the coming decades and increase its significance?
Well, when everyone thinks of Asia, China is the number one, a huge country. India is about the same size, but often people just forget about this region in the middle, Southeast Asia, which is 500 million people or more, and huge numbers in Indonesia is massive. Vietnam is 100 million people. Philippines is a bit more than that. Again, largely young populations, very dynamic, and it's not a coherent region. Rules do vary from country to country, so it's not as as easy sometimes to do business in Southeast Asia as it is, say, if you get into China and you've suddenly got a huge an audience there. But the number of people looking to for opportunities in Southeast Asia, I think, is rising all the time. And these countries are very, very aspirational and looking to learn, best practice from more developed countries, looking to import and looking to export. So yes, a very dynamic region.
Fascinating. Well, we could go on for hours on the subject, no less. But thank you very much for your time. Some useful insights. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity and thanks for your support.